Welcome to CarolinaCast, Season 3, Episode 14. I'm Chris Vermo alongside Sam Durham and special guest at Play-by-Play Sports Broadcasting Camps. He's from the Charlotte area, been around ACC Network and whatnot. I'm here with John Gross today. How you doing?
Doing well, guys. Thanks for having me. You guys do some awesome work, and I'm honored to be here.
So if you're checking in on the CarolinaCast for the first time, make sure you hit the subscribe button. The CarolinaCast on the road to 2,000 subscribers. If you want to check us out on Instagram or TikTok, we are at CarolinaCast Sports, and our Twitter/X, CarolinaCast_15. So John, first and foremost, I wanted to ask you, just heading into this business, like what were your thoughts thinking about it in your early stages of like, okay, I want to be a sports broadcaster? What made you do that? And like, where did it all start kind of?
Good question. I think a lot of sports broadcasters have a kind of similar story to my story. I loved playing sports. I loved watching sports growing up, but I learned pretty early on that I wasn't good enough to play like college or pro sports. So I asked myself, how can I stay involved? And sports broadcasting was the avenue. And I remember back in the day, NCAA Football 2006 for PS2 was the first video game I ever had. And I got that game and I would turn the sound off and I would announce the game. And then that was when I was 9 years old. Fast forward to high school, I remember lying in bed one night and thinking to myself, I should start a podcast with some friends, kind of like what you guys are doing, literally the same as what you guys are doing. It was called Sportsaholics 24/7. So I reached out to three of my closest friends, Nick, Brandon, and Jordan. And we started this online sports radio show. That's literally what you guys do. We would like interview people. We would talk about sports. Our parents and our grandparents, only people who listened. We didn't have anywhere close to the number of subscribers or viewers that you guys have. But we had fun with it. And then from there, I was like, I want to do this for a career. And went to college for it. Loved my time at Penn State. And I've been lucky to now be 5 years post-grad doing play-by-play ever since graduating.
So were you always like a soccer guy, or like when did that come into play? Like what sports do you do on the show?
Yeah, so I do everything. I've called 10 different sports. Nowadays, I mostly call games on ESPN Plus and ACC Network Extra. Over the summer when I do soccer, I do stuff on Apple TV as well. But soccer, the first time I really fell in love with soccer was the lead up to the 2009 Confederations Cup. And that's the tournament that they have the year before the World Cup. 2009 Confederations Cup, for those older people like me out there, you may remember, was one of the greatest runs in the history of U.S. men's national soccer team. Beat Spain 2-0 in the semifinals, had a 2-0 lead over Brazil in the championship, blew it, lost 3-2. But just the lead up to that and watching that really got me into it. And then, of course, the World Cup in 2010 was electric. So from then on, became a diehard fan of the U.S. men's national team, U.S. women's national team, and just enjoyed the sport. And then I started calling college soccer. In college, I was the voice of the Penn State men's soccer team as a senior. And then as a professional, was calling soccer. And then 2 years ago, started broadcasting down in Florida, where I've called games for USL, NWSL, MLS Next Pro, and CONCACAF.
So going off your Penn State experience, you said you broadcasted the men's soccer team in your senior year. What did you take from that experience at Penn State University? And I mean, how did it impact your future?
Great question. It wasn't just that experience. At Penn State, I had so many opportunities, and I owe so much of my success to the people and the opportunities from Penn State. I was able to call Penn State football games on the student radio station as a sophomore. I broadcast the Rose Bowl game as a sophomore. They sent me out there. It was unbelievable. And just learning how to operate in a professional environment like that was so impactful. Taught me from a young age how I need to act, how I need to dress, how I need to sound, how I need to look, how I need to prepare for games in order to be successful. So that was huge. And then the network. I know this week at camp, we've talked a lot about networking and how important it is to know people in this industry. The network that I was able to cultivate at Penn State was amazing. Penn State, as some people might know, has the largest dues-paying alumni association in the world. So there are Penn Staters everywhere. There are Penn Staters across the sports industry, and I've been fortunate to get to know a lot of them, and a lot of them have helped me to get me where I am.
So, I mean, obviously Penn State ended up being a success and all, but like, were you considering any other schools, or did you know right on like that was the place?
Yes, I was between Penn State and Syracuse. And as you guys know, Syracuse, Newhouse School, is known as the best for sports broadcasting. So just a little backstory. My dad went to Penn State, and I grew up going to Penn State football games, volleyball games, basketball games from birth. So I always loved Penn State. When it came to applying to colleges, I only wanted to apply to Penn State. But my dad, who went to Penn State, forced me to apply elsewhere. So I did, thinking, whatever, I'll just do this. And I got into Syracuse, got a really nice scholarship. And I was like, wait, this is like the place. I'm going to go to Syracuse. So I told my parents I'm going to Syracuse. We bought Syracuse shirts and all that. I was ready to go. I took all my visits. I loved it. And then I decided, you know what? Like, I had to decide on a Saturday. On that Thursday, I said to my dad, you know what? Let's take one more trip up to Penn State, just to do it. So we go, and I pull up to Beaver Stadium, the football stadium there. I go on the tour, and I'm like, Dad, how could I not come here? My heart is in Happy Valley. And that was it. But I was ready to go to Cuse. And, Syracuse, obviously, tremendous respect for what they do at Newhouse. But I'm so grateful for my experience at the College of Comm, now the Belisario College of Comm at Penn State.
So how, and now that you're a little bit post Penn State and whatnot, you're starting to work ESPN Plus and whatnot. Can you take us into a little bit of a further deep dive of like your preparation for ESPN Plus? You're talking about MLS Next Pro and all those other games that you cover.
Like in terms of how I get ready per game? Yeah. So it's definitely a process. I have spotting charts that I utilize. Actually, I have it in my bag. If you want me to grab one, I could pull it out.
I mean, sure, if you want to show it
I
off.
have one here. Get back in 1 second.
This is the perks you get from doing all this in person.
Indeed.
This would be pretty cool to check out.
All right.
I guess just also if it's an MLS Next Pro, she just explained to everybody what that really is.
Yes, good point. So MLS Next Pro, and this is MLS Next Pro, was a league founded in 2022 that is basically the reserves teams for the MLS teams. So every MLS team has a club associated with it. There are also a couple of independent teams in the league, and it just provides an opportunity for some of the rookies, some of the younger guys, maybe some guys who are battling back from an injury to play at a professional level and get ready to play in MLS. So it's really exciting soccer since a lot of the players are young. They're willing to take some risks, but it's cool. So this is a look at my spotting chart, and this was LAFC versus St. Louis City. I do a lot of preparation, as you can see. I have every player who might play, their statistics, how to pronounce their name, information about them, like stories and stats and facts. I speak to every head coach before every game that I broadcast, get some awesome info from them about the team, about the players. And yeah, it's like my cheat sheet. The key to any broadcast, especially play-by-play, is preparation. If you are prepared, the actual broadcast itself is the fun and easy part. So it takes me a long time, a couple of days to get ready for a game. Like I said, I speak to the head coaches, do hours of research, digging deep on the internet for stories about athletes. I'll scour their social media pages as well, and just to get as much info as I possibly can. And the reality is, a lot of that info I don't use on air, but if it pops up, I'm going to throw it in there, and I want to be able to let the listener know that they can trust me, that I know what I'm talking about. And I always want to inform and entertain the listener. And I also strive to give the listeners, the viewers, at least one new piece of information that they didn't know before by the end of a broadcast.
I mean, that's honestly extra preparation. You can't ever hate on that for sure. I know that. But speaking of preparation and talking about like all this MLS Next Pro, I haven't heard of that till this week. And honestly, I'm very interested to take a deeper dive into it once I get back home. But I also want to hear about your like ESPN Plus, like your games that you do around the ACC and whatnot, and the sports you cover for that. I mean, obviously, we're rocking Duke Carolina right now.
I'm
But,
surprised you guys can sit next to each other like this.
I mean, we've had to deal with this for a
Gotten
couple of
used to
years.
it.
We've gotten used
Both
to it.
teams haven't really had
Somehow,
the
and the
best
fact
years
that-
we've been friends.
How about the fact that your last name is literally the town
It's
where
Durham.
Duke is located, and you're a
I
Carolina
found that
guy?
kind of odd.
2022 is a good year, that's for sure.
Oh my goodness, yeah, we've really been through it, especially 2022. But yeah, if you could what are your favorite games or like the sports you get to commentate over for those, or if you wanted to say the audience like more about that.
Absolutely. So as you guys know, I live just outside of Charlotte, and living in the Carolinas, there are so many colleges, so many D1 schools in particular, but even D1, D2, D3, NAIA, all that stuff. It's great. And I'm fortunate to work at, I think I've called games at nearly a dozen Division I colleges in North and South Carolina. When I first came out of school, I spent 2 years as the voice of UNC Pembroke Athletics, which is in Pembroke, North Carolina, D2 school. Loved my time there. It was awesome. But now calling all these games, 9 different sports I've done, which is really cool. I've worked everywhere from like Carolina and Duke to Wake Forest, down to Clemson, Davidson, Wofford, Winthrop, UNCG, probably forgetting some schools right now, but it's been a lot of fun. And I love the fact that I can travel and explore these different college campuses and these college towns and really get a feel for like the culture, because you guys know what it's like the culture at Duke is so different than the culture at UNC, the traditions, the history. And coming from New Jersey, which is where I'm from, people up there really don't care that much about college athletics. And I love college sports. I was the only college football fan growing up in my school. So to come down, to move down south, to live in the Carolinas, I'm lucky to live in what I genuinely think is like the best area of the country for college athletics in terms of how much the fans care and in terms of the quality of athletic departments.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably true and a good point. Do you have like a game in particular you remember like the best player you've probably broadcasted on at college at least, or?
So this past year I did some Wake Forest baseball, and I got to call Chase Burns. If you guys know who he is.
Wake Forest, right?
Yes. Yeah. Chase Burns and Josh Hartle. Both those guys should be first round picks. Chase Burns, I think at like the third inning, the dude was still throwing 100 miles an hour. Insane. Transferred from Tennessee. He was a beast. Yeah, he's probably the best guy that I've called. Some women's basketball, did some pretty cool teams. Like I did Carolina. Deja Kelly's very, very good. Alyssa Usby, 2 phenomenal players. Those are probably some of the biggest players I've done, but like just in terms of most known players. But I've been lucky to call everything from football to women's gymnastics, and just to see some of the incredible athletes at all of these different sports that maybe don't get the attention that they deserve. Like I view it as my responsibility and really an honor to showcase those players who maybe you guys haven't heard of, because they work just as hard and they're just as talented for their respective sport. And it's my job to share their greatness with the listeners and viewers.
So we know like your necessarily like your pregame into a certain game, but could you? I'm really curious because I mean this is really what we want to do. If you have like you have your schedule, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have maybe like a couple games this week and whatnot. What is the process to it? Do you take like a certain day to focus on one game to the next, and then the traveling and whatnot? Like what is it like a day, like a week of John Gross look like?
Great question. And it kind of varies. Some weeks when I'm doing work in the Carolinas, I am doing like 5 games a week and traveling to different schools. I've also done tournaments where I do like 12 games in 3 days. So you're right. The preparation is challenging. I try my best to get everything done as soon as I possibly can, so that by the day of, or at least, the hours leading up to me having to leave, I'm all ready to go. I'm set to go on the road. My charts are printed out. But I think it is really important to be able to be, to have good time management. That's critical. If you don't have good time management, you will get overwhelmed. You won't be able to prep as well as you possibly can. The one thing that also helps me, even though I have a lot of games in a short amount of time, a lot of times I do call repeat teams, whether it's the school that's hiring me or the school that they're playing. you guys know how it is. There's so many colleges that play each other in North and South Carolina.
Right.
So if I've built a board out for a team already, it saves me time. I just have to update my stats, update some storylines, update my coach quotes. So that helps me. But you're right. It's a grind. It's a challenge, and you really have to be good with your time to pack in some quality prep.
I mean, you've obviously, I'm assuming, like made some changes to your routine and stuff. Do you think you're still like changing some stuff, or like have you got down to something?
I think I'm pretty satisfied with where I am now. I made a big change after my second year at UNC Pembroke. I used to do a lot more handwritten notes, but then I changed to typed up for like everything. Found some really good templates online for these spotting charts. And then the most recent big change I made was before last college football season. I went from a fully handwritten football board that I had used since high school to now I type up everything. I do Davidson football for their ESPN Plus broadcasts. And now I type everything up. That makes it much easier to read because my handwriting is awful. So now it's just typed up and I can actually read it better. But good question. And I think it's important to note that every broadcaster prepares differently. So if you see me prepping like this, maybe that's what works for you. Maybe something else works better. So it's about what works for you best. And I think I found for now what I feel like is my best format to prep with.
I mean, you talk about the handwriting thing. I'm probably pretty close, man. I just struggle with handwriting, so I'm probably pretty good. So here on the computer and whatnot.
There we go.
But so going back, you were talking about we've talked about ESPN Plus and the MLS Pro and whatnot. But do you have it could be a game or like a moment that you commentated on that was your favorite, your personal favorite?
Really tough question. I will go. While I answer this, I'm going to think of some more because I've had a bunch. But one that was really special to me was getting the opportunity to broadcast the first ever Clemson women's gymnastics meet. They do it at the Clemson basketball arena, and it's about 9,000 capacity. It was full, completely full. The energy, the electricity, the passion in that arena rivaled or was better than most high-level college basketball venues. It was unbelievable. So that was really cool. I did an amazing UNC softball game this past spring where they were down against Louisville, final game of the series, crucial ACC series. Last inning, Carolina was down like 6-2 in the seventh, came back and walked it off. Just an insane game. That was a lot of fun. I think the first moment that I had that was like a pinch me moment was when I got to broadcast my first Penn State football game as a student, just because I grew up a Penn State fan, and it was a night game against Iowa, and it was sick. So that was awesome. And then, of course, getting to the Rose Bowl as a sophomore in college was just, that was unbelievable. So I've been fortunate to have a ton of special games. I'm sure I'm forgetting many awesome games that I've called, but there have been many pinch me moments like, is this really my job? Am I actually getting paid to sit here and talk about what I just saw? It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess just talking about the future, do you get like started up in August for like college soccer and stuff, or like when do you get started
Yes.
for this upcoming year? I know Davidson has that new stadium too. So.
They're opening up that new stadium. Hopefully I'll see you guys there for a couple of games.
Yes, sir.
So I finish up with my summer soccer season doing USL and MLS Next Pro late August. And then I head back to North Carolina, and I'm getting my schedule pretty much as we speak. This whole week, I've been busy emailing people, starting to fill out with some schools in the Carolinas and some opportunities all around. So yeah, late August is when I start college volleyball, college soccer, and then the first Davidson football game is September 7th, I believe.
I'm super excited for college football season, but yeah, if you're getting out for the Davidson games, then for sure we're gonna be ready for that. Of course, this year I haven't really necessarily been around the campus a lot as I should. It's only maybe 50 minutes from the house.
Yeah, I'll probably go there at least once just for like a tour, but I'll see.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you guys this, Davidson football, it's so under the radar because when people think Davidson, they think of basketball, right? Steph Curry and all the success they've had over the years. But Davidson football and the head coach there, Scott Abel, who's a tremendous guy and a brilliant football mind, took what was a historically awful stretch of football for Davidson when he first got hired into making the FCS playoff year after year. And he's won multiple Pioneer Football League championships, and he's done it with one of the most unique offenses I've ever seen. It's kind of like a triple option out of the pistol, but they throw it around as well. Very, very unique, very difficult to stop. So it's a lot of fun. It's a really fun brand of football.
Yeah, I remember. I think the only FCS playoff game I went to was like a Wofford game, and they had like 30 passing yards in halftime. It's like normal weather day too.
Yeah, I think Wofford used to run the triple option at one point, so maybe that was why.
Yeah, probably struggling, or they didn't really pass it a lot if they were on triple option. You know a lot of Wofford stuff though, right?
I used to go to their basketball games during that 2018 through 19 season because they're really good.
Fletcher McGee,
Which was like, yeah I know.
Yeah,
I went before they got ranked. Like I just went to because I went to the playoff game when during 2018 against E1. So I was like, okay, they have that new stadium because they just built.
Isn't it unbelievable? The Jerry Richardson Indoor Stadium.
Stadium is unbelievable. Been there. It's probably it's by far the best mid-major basketball stadium I've been to.
Easily.
It's got to be top. It's top tier at least, but
it's one of the nice. Forget about mid-major. One of the nicest basketball arenas I've ever been in.
It's really nice there, but yeah, I went to a lot of games during that season. But I kind of just was like, they kept winning, so I was like, okay, keep going. Like we're 21-0 in conference play now, and it's just like, yeah. It
reminds me a lot of the like FAUs and whatnot that we've had recently. The big wins and the
if that team played like in nowadays, I think they would have gone further because just like so many people go further now. I think that if they had that team now, they would have gone further.
When we talk about this, and this is what I love about college athletics, how unpredictable it is. These under the radar schools, athletes stepping up and having these unbelievable moments. Like this is why I love working in college athletics, and I want to continue to call college games pro sports fun. I like the NBA, not a big NFL guy at all. But I mean, if the NFL came knocking and it was like, "Here, John, broadcast our games," I'm not going to say no. but my dream is to call college football. So yeah.
No, I feel you. I mean, the NFL has always been my dream, just because Charlotte and the Panthers and whatnot. But I can get it because I do love college sports and the environment, like you said, the environment, the just the overall setting, just players and coaches. You don't get a collegiate experience and a professional experience.
No. To me, it comes down to three things: the tradition, the pageantry, and the unpredictability. Those three things, in my eyes, make college football and college sports in general superior than pro sports.
Sounds like the EA Sports college football tagline.
Hey, EA Sports, if you want to use it, you could, I've been saying that for years, so you know what to call.
Who knows? Who'll be the next Godden or Chris Fowler for the games coming up too.
Listen, that's my dream. I'm telling you, I'm getting very emotional talking about this because NCAA 14 has been my life for the past decade or so. I play that game like every day. I'm up to 55 in the world for rankings for the online. It's
ready to go.
I'm fired up for this new game though. You guys gonna get it?
Yeah, I saw it in card, dude.
Oh, you have it already?
I just need to get home.
Wow. It'll download once it's released.
Yeah, took the funds out the bank, whatever.
I have to buy a new console. I'm stuck in 2013 with my Xbox 360.
Oh, so. I had an Xbox 360. Yeah, I used to play that game a little.
Yeah, we used to do the little when we got bored. Sam would figure out how to turn it on and whatnot. We try and do the dynasties online and stuff.
Yep, that's what it's all about. It's the best. The best.
I wanted to ask you a few more questions. Do you have certain advice? So for the youngsters like Sam and I and everyone else at this camp, of course, who are trying to make it big in this industry. What was the mentality and what was your look basically to get to where you are?
Couple things. First of all, what you guys are doing now with this show is tremendous, and I want to congratulate both of you because so many people say they want to do something, but it's one thing to say you want to do it and another thing to do it. You guys are doing it at a high level. So kudos to you guys for that. That's number one. You have to get the reps. You have to do it. This is not an industry where you can go to class and get straight A's and get a job. You have to be able to show employers that you can do the job. They want to hear you. They want to see how you look. That's key. The only way to get better at this is to get reps, and more reps. Number two is networking. And we've talked about this a lot this week, obviously at camp. You need to connect with people. And I know you guys have connected with some cool people through this podcast. Keep reaching out to people in this industry because you can get to know them, and then maybe down the road they can help you career-wise. That's huge. I would say study the industry. Understand how somebody gets from point A to point B as a broadcaster. Everyone has a different path, but there are certainly themes that you can take from everybody's path. There are some common threads. I think you talk about the mindset. You have to understand that working in this field is challenging. Obviously, it's a blast. I love my job. I would not trade it for the world, but it's difficult in many ways. Early on, especially, the money is awful. Straight up, it's awful. You will have to move far away from home. I grew up outside of New York City in northern New Jersey, went to a massive school like Penn State. My first job out of college, I called some summer league baseball up in Saugerties, New York, which was amazing. That was close to home. But then I moved down to Pembroke, North Carolina. You guys are both from North Carolina. Do you know where Pembroke is?
I mean, it's not that far from Charlotte area.
It's like 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
So it's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
Middle of nowhere, small college. But I loved it. But it was a big adjustment. It was tough. I've had to, be away from my family, from my girlfriend, from my friends for the last 5 or so years. But it's the dream. So you have to be willing to make a lot of sacrifices. You have to know that early on, you won't make the big bucks. Early on, you won't be calling the big games. Early on, you won't be, in a comfortable position per se. You're gonna have to move far away. You might not be able to see your family, your friends, your loved ones, whatever it is. But if you persevere, you will be able to find opportunities. And I think that's the mindset that you have to have in this field. It's not easy. It's not easy, and not everyone's built for it. But if you persevere, it's worth it. And I still have a ways to go. I'm still early on in my career, so I'm still working on that perseverance as well.
All right. Well, I wanted to just say one last thing to ask you. Do you, first and foremost, just once again, thank you for coming on for all this in this segment. Of course. We really appreciate it. But what do you think this industry, what does this industry mean to you in a way? And like, I haven't really asked this before because I've always tried to ask it myself. Like, sports means like just like, it's like a whole different world to me, like a different dimension and a love for it. But like this industry, because all of us really want to be in it. What does it sincerely mean to you?
Man, sports means so much to me. Some of my earliest memories were going to sporting events. I remember the first NBA game I ever went to was a New Jersey Nets versus Phoenix Suns preseason game in 2001. And I was, 4 years old. And I still vividly remember this. I was with my dad, probably not my brother because he was 1 year old at the time, but with my dad sitting in the upper deck of what was then called the Continental Airlines Arena at the Meadowlands in East Rutherford. And my uncle called up my dad and put me on the phone, and my uncle said, "John, what do you think?" And I remember saying, "Oh, it's so loud. It's so loud. This is so cool." Vividly remember that as a 4-year-old. So to be able to go to games like that with my dad, with my brother, with my mom, watching games and everything, and to now be able to work in this field, it's just so special because I think of the announcers who made my childhood special. Ian Eagle, Brent Musburger, Chris Fowler, Chris Carino, all the people that I grew up watching, so many others, by the way, but those are just a few. I think to myself, how lucky am I that there could be some person out there watching this, just a huge sports fan, and they're listening to me tell these stories. So it's really cool. I never take any of it for granted. I know how lucky I am to work in this field. I know how many people want to work in this field. So it means everything to have the opportunity to work in sports broadcasting because sports for so long has been like my life. I have, obviously a lot of other interests and passions beyond sports, but it's truly an honor to work in this field, and I love it every day.
Well, once again, thank you, John, for joining us. If you check us out for the first time on Instagram or TikTok, we are at CarolinaCast Sports. If you want to check us out on Twitter/X, we are at CarolinaCast_15. Once again, thank you, John, for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Keep up the great work. Seriously, these are two future broadcast stars. No doubt about it. They're going to be crushing it in about, 15 years or so?
I mean, whenever
10, 15 years, whenever it is.
Whenever I get the call.
Whenever you get that call, keep those
Yes,
phones
sir.
ready. Great
right.
stuff, guys. I appreciate you having me today.
Well, thank you once again for joining. I'm Chris Vermo, Sam Durham, John Gross, and for the rest of our crew, we say so long from Chicago, Illinois.
See you guys.